Ah, it's very interesting questions here that are all about writing, and I almost never get those. Here's one. I may have already answered it, but let's follow it up. It's John Frost. As a writer, do you know when you've captured something that rises above the mundane and ordinary, or do you simply have to wait and see what the reader's response is? Having only a meager education from Hammerdown University, can a lowly industrial pipe fitter ever hope to be taken seriously as a writer? Yes. People don't read past the 499th word these days. How do you get past this hump without resorting to overblown sensationalism in paragraph 2? My God, these are great questions. Do people read for entertainment anymore? Do they have the time to waste on self-indulgence? A decent story, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever got a couple of hours of time to waste taking a trip to a magical place down at the end of the street? Okay. Geez, John, those are all great questions about writing, and it's fun to talk about writing because it's not politics, and I talk about politics a lot. And so to just kind of add on to what it already said, do I know when I've captured something that rises above the mundane? Yes, I absolutely do. There's no question about it. I find myself shocked at how much I like every one of the firewalls and afterburners that I've done. There have been many, many, many times when I thought I'm just going to sit down and pound out something, and it's just going to be what it is because half of my work is below average. But I've been astonished at how much I like all of them. I don't think there's any exceptions, but there's no question that I know when I've hit something like really, really on it. I know. I remember when I did number one with a bullet. I was so astonished at the end of that, only because the data fell into place so easily. I mean, I had the theory, I had the idea, and then I did the little research, and it's like ting 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 ting. Ting. Are you serious? Are you kidding me? It wrote itself. But yes, I know when stuff is good. I know when it's not. And by the way, guys, since we're talking about show business and all this stuff, this episode, there is one skill necessary to be a success. Well, let me rephrase that. There are many, many, many successes in show business in Hollywood that are not talented at all. So I'm talking about artistic success. The most important thing by far is you've got to know when something's good and when something's not good. You really, really have to know what's good and what's not. And you also have to be committed to the idea that if it's not really good, you're just gonna chuck it. The reason I have so much the enormous major reason it's so hard for me to sit down and write is this everlasting fear that's not unique to me. I think every writer's ever had it, ever. Is this everlasting fear that I'm not going to be able to write anything good. It's just going to be junk, and I just don't want to face it. And every time I sit down and start moving the fingers on the keyboard, it turns out pretty well. But I I just you've gotta know what's good and what's not good. And the only way you can do that is to do a bunch of not good stuff and then do some good stuff. Another characteristic that a lot of writers and actors and stuff that I know have in common, I certainly feel this way, is it's virtually impossible for me to go back and read anything that I wrote more than 2, 3 years ago. If I had to read Silent America now, I just don't think I could take it. I am very, very proud of that book. I'm very proud of those essays. I thought they were great, and I still think they're great. But looking back on it, having done thousands and thousands and thousands of scripts since I did those, if you're not embarrassed about the work that you did earlier in your career, then you're not improving. You know, you should be um, like, this is garbage. I wrote this 7 years ago. It's junk. Uh, Trey Stevens says you're being too hard on yourself. I think you're probably right. It certainly is not the best for your mental health. But the bottom line is, you have to have this quality, and if you don't, um, you're going to be stuck in mediocrity. That's the whole point of Ed Wood and that movie Ed Wood, which I've talked about so many times, where Ed Wood has this fictional meeting with Orson Welles. Both love movies, both know how to make movies, both are directors. One of them thinks that the audience won't notice if a woman's foot knocks a flat and the thing vibrates. and the other one will spend 3 days lighting one shot. It's just an unwillingness to settle for less, and you have to have the taste and the perception to know. I mean, you could give Ed Wood, you could tell Ed Wood, you got, not only do you have 3 days to light this scene, but you have to use 3 days to light this scene. After 40 minutes, Ed Wood is going to be sitting there for 3 days. He's not going to know what to do. He doesn't have the perception to realize that. And that's really, 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 really important. Really important is the perception to realize how much better things could be. So if you've got some talent, you find yourself in this ongoing trap, and that is, I want it to be great. I want it to be perfect. Once it's written, it's not perfect. Okay, I still want to get it as good as I can. And at what point do you kick it out the door because you have other things to deliver? It's that kind of thing is much tougher when you're working on scripts that have nothing to do with shows or deadlines or people or anything like that. It's just tough. But the hard part is cutting the stuff you love, as I've said before. There have been many times where I've had to cut stuff I really liked, and that was the one sentence that I remember clearly about the Cheers spec sessions. Was one of these guys who was one of the story editor, chief story editor or something, and he was going through the script with me, and he was saying, these 3 paragraphs here, that is about as well constructed of a joke as I've ever seen. It's perfect. It's a perfect joke, and it's perfect payoff, and it's funny, but you'd have to lose it. Okay, I understand, but why? He said, because it's not moving the story. And Cheers could afford to cut good stuff because Cheers was a brilliant show. Other shows that lasted a season, if that, would take any laugh they can get, and that's why they always stayed mediocre shows. They were mediocre. They never went to the time to develop the characters. It sure is nice to talk about entertainment instead of politics. One thing that's interesting, and you can see this in a lot of cases, I mentioned Oculus Imperia and Critical Drinker. I've seen it in both of them. And I've seen it many, many times in TV shows. And I've seen it with me. When a TV show starts, Simpsons is a great example, Family Guy is a great example. If you look at if it's the kind of show that goes on to become a classic and you get to really love it, you almost can't watch the first season or 2 because they haven't figured out how to be Simpsons yet. It took the Simpsons 2 full years before season 3, all of a sudden 3 to 10 was just the best writing ever. But you don't know how to do it yet. You're onto something because you're still there. You're getting renewed, but you don't know how to do it. And when I listen to older stuff from Critical Drinker or Oculus or any of these other people, Internet Historian, you look at the beginning stuff, and what you find is the stuff that got you interested in them is everything they had at the beginning, but turned up. Turned up. Oculus Imperium guy initially read it with kind of a soft sort of an accent, but by the time I caught on to him, he was performing it as a monk, and he was writing it as a monk, and it was great. And he had the germ of the idea. You could tell it was there, but he hadn't figured it out yet. And this is true for everything. It's going to be true for these science fiction videos. I've got a clear idea of what I want to do with the characters, and I've got a clear idea of story arcs for 3 seasons of it. But I don't. Those characters are not going to be defined until you define them. And the only way to define them is to write them. And if something's not working, you chuck it, and if it is working, you keep it. But this is one of the things that really is absolutely grand about showbiz. I'm just constantly, dumping on show business all the time because of the ethics of it and the politics and all the rest of it. But I wouldn't be doing it if there wasn't something really, really wonderful about it. And the best part about movies and TV and the kind of stuff we'll be doing now, thanks to our patron, is collaboration is great. And the best example of that is for me anyway, is I'll write a character and I'll put everything I can onto that page, and then I'll hand that off to a good actor. And a good actor will look at this. And the good actor doesn't have to worry about the movie. He doesn't have to worry about anything. He doesn't have to worry about the lighting or the electrical. He doesn't have to worry about costumes. He doesn't have to worry about the other characters. All he worries about is this one guy, and looks at the outline of this personality that I put in there with a couple of lines, and manages to fill in the gaps. And it's an astonishingly great feeling to create a character and then have an actor come back with the character much better than he was before you hand it to him. That is a big deal. We've been talking about Star Trek on and off in the comment section. William Shatner came at Captain Kirk in a certain way, and after a few episodes, the writers, the writing staff, and the producers began to realize this is good. We like this. This not so much. And so, with Kirk, you got he learned how to make a joke. You learned how to tell a Kirk joke. And a Kirk joke, the classic Kirk joke is the embarrassment joke. The best way to get humor from James Kirk is to embarrass him. A perfect example of that is in Trouble with Tribbles, when there's a big fight with the Klingons down there, and Kirk's got the guys that were down on the fight lined up, and Scotty was one of them. And he goes down there and says, "I thought I told you not to fight. That's why I sent you, Mr. Scott." "Yes, sir, but they insulted us. They insulted the Enterprise." "Insulted the Enterprise, did they?" They said, "Yes, sir." And the crew, "Yes, sir." "Well, what did they say?" "They said that you, Captain, you were a Danubian slime devil." And Kirk says, "Okay." That's when you hit him. "No, sir. You told us we had to mind our manners." But he called the Enterprise a garbage cow, and that's when I hit him. And that's great writing, because it's believable. It doesn't detract, and at the same time, it shows you Kirk is a good sport. But it's that kind of embarrassing humor. By the way, Critical Drinker had an episode on the original on the reboot Star Trek movies, and he's very, very hard on them. He's absolutely right. I let the gloss of those movies kind of make me feel better about them than they are. But I remember when the first trailer for the first Star Trek movie came out in 2009. I remember thinking, so Kirk is what? He's a motorcycle guy who lives by his fists. Is that it? He's just a guy who fights. And Critical Drinker goes and takes a look at these movies, and he was dealing with Inner Darkness, and he said, yeah, in the original, you've got this guy sitting on a box, suffering because he knows that his arrogance has cost him his crew, and maybe the lives of his entire crew, and maybe a ship, and maybe the whole galaxy. And he's suffering, and he's thinking, and he's quiet, and then he does all of these things. And then in the reboot, it's all just action. It's just punch, punch, run, punch, punch. It's a very, 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 very good analysis of why the original was so much better. And he's got a very good analysis on reboots in general. All right, we have 3 minutes and 45 seconds left. I might be able to do one more real fast here. Was it Dave Big Booty I said I was going to look for? Let's see if we can find it. Eric Blake. Not looking at not looking. My God, Eric Blake has 25 questions here. We'll do some more of this next time. I like talking about this stuff. All right, let me go to the comment section, see if I can find it. Dave, I don't know what it was. Director's cut of the motion picture is best viewed on DVD, where you can zip through all the cloud formation and space stations. Exactly. The original Star Trek, the motion picture, is just... It's painful. It's just painful. Slow. Anyway, that's it. Dave, if you have a chance to put something in there. Okay, well, I can't see it, and we got 2 minutes and 44 seconds left. Unless it's under a different name. Steve Jenner, John Frost. Check one more time. Might be under a different name, I'm sure. And I don't think we're going to have time to get to it. So we'll be able to get to it next time. Let me look one more time here. Oh, Dave Olson is your? I'll be damned, Dave. How about that? I did not know that those two people were the same person. I just didn't know. How about that? Wow, I thought those were two great guys. Turns out it's one great guy. We don't. The question was, do we have a store at BillWhittle.com? We had one when we started. We still have a closet of T-shirts back there. We've been getting the rest of the stuff out slowly, just But we started with the idea that we would have a store and it would make a lot of money, and it was by far the worst decision that I'd made in terms of getting this business set up. It was, just doing the fulfillment on these things was just a ton of work, and you've got obligations and you're late. When we first opened our doors, I tried to get people to pack boxes, and I'm not making this up. They would put people I got in touch with, they'd take a box big enough to put a mug in there. They'd put in the mug, and I've seen people showing me pictures of how the mug arrived broken. And there were 3 packing peanuts in there. And it was just like every single one of them was broken. It went out again and again and again. I was like, oh my God, what the hell am I doing? Anyway, I was listening to something about this, dealing with Star Citizen. Great article on Star Citizen, great series of videos on Star Citizen. Not very complimentary, but very, very insightful. And they were talking about the difference between fulfillment of something that's real, like a T-shirt or a mug or something, versus something like a digital download, which doesn't cost you anything, and certainly is the way to go, because fulfillment alone, just fulfillment, is a bear. It's really tough, especially on an organization this size. Matt Harris says his mug was perfect. Glad to hear it. I am. Rough Waters has got a question about Air Force cadets and gliders, and I don't have time to do it. Rough Waters, please bring it back next time, though I'd really appreciate it, because we got 7 seconds now, and I'm going to close this show with a thank you, as always, to our members, and we'll see you next time on the Stratosphere Lounge. Stop it, bells!